trying to cajole people to bring their projects in and download them. So Unreal is probably in the works. I don't know too much about Unreal on phones, honestly, even though I work on it for VR. But yeah, PUBG, yeah. Yeah, well, and Fortnite, obviously. But I'm trying to think like how many small teams pick Unreal for a phone and aren't doing VR. That seems like that's a hollowed out set of people there. So it's a strange set of features. So on the high end, 6 DOF and hand tracking. On the low end, just 3 DOF, and you can only turn your head around. And basically, you just get kind of a ray cast into the 3D scene for face-based selecting of things. But yeah, if you're going to want to watch one talk from AWE, the entire conference is available, which is pretty cool, but it's overwhelming. The Steve Lucas guy, he was born for the stage, he has no shame. You watch the other Qualcomm presenters, you wish you were dead. You watch him, and he's singing and rapping, and it's the same topics, but you're like engaged the whole time. But just to see some examples, they fly by kind of quick of what this dual render thing is all about. Let's see if we have audio. And check this.
Check out what some of our developers did.
So the thing is, this was an existing app, and in short order, you get a 3D thing that you watch in your AR goggles along with your phone app.
We asked them to experiment with a variety of use cases.
This is probably a simpler app. It's a picture of a dog.
Together.
This was probably the second one I would have picked, except I have no idea what their game is. But putting something other than the 3D view on the phone, I think, is the key to success here. Otherwise, you don't need a second screen at all.
You'll also notice still full-featured hand tracking in addition to what you're using with the phone. And in so many cool different ways.
It's been amazing to see this experience in augmented reality and to have an extra interface to use that everyone understands how to interact. The addition of a smartphone into the experience allowed us to enhance the museum. So we chose to use it kind of like a pamphlet or guidebook in a museum.
We asked to create new experiences or existing experiences for XR and just see what they can do. Just go nuts. Just so beautiful on bed animations. Lets you dive and remove trash from the coral reef. The combination of net tracking and sweet digital touchscreen deliver incredibly realistic experience.
I don't believe him, but it was the best UI, I thought, of the ones they showed. But yeah, does anybody have a set of Nreal or any of the other $200-ish AR glasses?
I was looking at those, but I don't know anybody that has them.
Yeah. Nreal? Okay. Have you played with them? Matt, have you played with them?
A little bit. I haven't dove deep into it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean they're 3 DOF. They're 3 DOF AR glasses, but people say the clarity's good. The big thing with the birdbath optics that they all have is from the front they look like sunglasses. From the side they're out here. Sunglasses out here. But you know that's not the point to actually look cool. It's just a marketing thing that's slightly deceptive. And Nreal is called X-Real now. They announced that at this conference because they lost their lawsuit with Epic Games. No. Yeah. And then just because you won't see it anywhere else, I just wanted to hit on some of the optic stuff that's going on. If you've ever tried a HoloLens or a Magic Leap, you know that it's great, but the field of view is small and color aberration problems all over the place. And a lot of the cost of that $3 grand is the optics, for as disappointing as they are. So I dug into this after I started working with HoloLens, and we truly need something new that's not invented, doesn't exist yet, to have the AR glasses that we actually want, which is why Apple didn't use see-through optics for theirs. So these are the ones that are kind of the contenders, I would say. I'll just show this real quick, but if you're not familiar with the waveguide, it's a shorthand for you inject some light into a clear thing, it bounces around inside and then turns 90 degrees and comes out to your eye while still being clear so you can see through it. So it's kind of...
Is that on a certain device, or what is that?
This is an optics manufacturer, so it doesn't exist on a device.
So it's the lenses inside of the
Yeah.
glasses?
Yep.
So, something I wonder with that, is there just like many layers of those things, or is it somehow
It depends.
cancel out so that it comes off the right place?
So like a HoloLens or a Magic Leap uses diffractive or other things that are smaller than the wavelength or right at the wavelength of light, which is why all those color aberration problems. So in a Magic Leap or Magic Leap 2 or HoloLens, there is one for red, one for green, one for blue because the wavelengths of light are a different size.
Well, okay, it's like a flat surface, if the light's coming down through the coming out, right?
Yep, and eventually goes essentially through pipes, hits something and then turns 90 degrees, goes into your eye. But those pipes are all stickers with super crazy manufacturing tolerances to deflect light.
So that's my question, is there a layer for each row of pixels, or is it somehow multiple rows?
There's a layer per color, and then yeah, there's kind of a scattered grid thing. And then there's other waveguides that aren't like that, but none of those have come to market. And they all are not like that, so they don't have those same rainbowy problems if you've ever tried a HoloLens. If you ever haven't tried a HoloLens, you're like, I'm gonna display something on a white background. It's like, sweet, you're getting rainbow green, pink, blue, like an oil sheen. That's white. And if you move your head, it moves with you, and it's different per eye. And you're like, I'm never gonna use white again. And it's different per headset. We had one headset that couldn't do blue in the left eye. That was fun.
That's a HoloLens thing?
HoloLens and Magic Leap.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Anybody that's kind of gone to market with one of the modern waveguides. Well, for the trade-off though, you can see the world without dying, even if the power shuts off. So this is really promising. This is actual through the lens video. I wouldn't say accurate colors, but I would say consistent colors. And they're just gonna run through their stuff. And when I say small field of view, if you haven't done it, it's like 30 degrees. So if you can't visualize that, that's like your laptop at full arm extension. So these are significantly more. And they were demoing these on the floor, so if someone bites, they're promising. And then this last one is an auto-dimming polarization layer like Magic Leap 2.
You got to try those ones?
No, I wasn't there.
Oh.
I got to watch on the internet. But people that tried them said they seem promising. And there's maybe gotchas, who knows. With like HoloLens 1, it was manufacturing. It's for every, however many we try to build, we end up with, you know, a small percentage that are usable. So everybody's really aware of that now. But so that's one just to keep an eye on. And if you're kind of interested, the neat thing about AWE as well is the talks are nice and short, compact. This is a pretty reasonable one to look at. So just kind of see how it works. Let in AR. Anybody heard of these? This is just crazy, and they've been around for a couple of years, so I think there's a drawback that nobody talks about. So to be ultra cheap, who's used pinhole glasses, so like opaque glasses with the little holes in them? And I got one at like the circus when I was, you know, in elementary school. I went to Barnum and Bailey and came back with gold-colored pinhole glasses. It's that kind of a concept, but each of those little things is a mirror, and then the rest of it's clear. And so that same kind of concept, as it gets close enough, you can focus on them, and it kind of fills your awareness, and then you can focus through them or past them to see the real world. And there's got to be drawbacks. I've heard people theorize that maybe they'll work better in bright light than dark light because your pupil will be smaller when you're outdoors, closer to the size of the mirrors. But that's what they look like. I'll try to catch a frame here when he takes them off. Because they're mirrors and not ultra science, they're super bright. This is really film through the lens walking outdoors. Oh, I didn't pause. Back up a smidge. This is helpful.
They were at CES last year, that CES in person.
And did you try the older ones? So
Yeah,
they
it
took,
was interesting. You had to be in a very specific distance away. The lens in your eye had to be there. Closer and further out here for sure.
and how did it look? Like if you wiggled them, did it do crazy distortions or crazy aliasing?
I have some video of it. I remember it was a proof of concept that was pretty early.
Yeah.
It was surprising how clear it was when you had it lined up, and that's true of a lot of these.
And they're very small. This is one of the founders. The guy in the video is one of the founders, and later on he drives a car wearing these things. So he doesn't have an insurance company that's holding him back. Let's see if I can't frame by frame this. As they come off, you'll see just kind of this little grid right there. You vaguely see it. It's just a bunch of little mirrors, and then there's a little bit of an obfuscation from the front because there's a bunch of little mirrors in front of your eye. But compared to HoloLens and Magic Leap that both shoot a bunch of light outwards, people say it's not any worse than that. But the fact that they're not tinted, they are pretty much clear, and it's bright enough for him to walk around and show stuff and even film it. This is a stupid use case. Here's him driving the car. Like, it seems promising as a stopgap, you know, for the cheap solution. And the other good demo they have is they take the lens and they throw it at the ground as far as they can, so it bounces, you know, higher than their booth, and it doesn't scuff or break because it's just a silly plastic with a bunch of little mirrors in it.
Can you wear it while skiing though, like that other guy?
He's driving. No question he could wear them while skiing.
Yeah, we don't hurt other people from driving. You're skiing.
So that's kind of an interesting one. So that, I wouldn't call it a waveguide, but it kind of does the same thing of it injects light at the top somewhere and then turns it 90 degrees in a very literal sense and shoots it out to your eye. So they've updated their designs a little bit. And why aren't we doing slides anymore? Okay. And then for VR folks, this seems like a big deal. It's called Hypervision.
Oh, is this holographic displays?
It's two sets of pancake lenses that are pretty impressive on their own, and then some kind of clever way of stitching them together 90 degrees so that you don't see the gap very much. So it's 4 screens total. He's just running it off a laptop. And experienced people that have tried these were impressed by how little of a transition and how little distortion you get. If you've ever used the wide field of view Pimax headsets. They are wide field of view, and also something crazy is happening over here. I got sick after 5 minutes.
Wait, which ones?
Pimax?
Same.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So supposedly this doesn't do that, and I think it probably helps that there's extra screens because our 3D pipelines are not made for a curved render surface. They're made for a flat TV as the thing you project all your geometry onto.
Was the Pimax thing just like the distortion of the lens to match the model for it or something?
Yeah, and as you move your eye, you can see things happen like swimming out here, and it's surprisingly thin, and people that know stuff are surprisingly impressed with it. So much so that this guy started demoing this in January, and by May he had a second round of investors that make headsets. And this was a little bit caused by Apple buying Limback, which makes the Lynx lenses that are so unique. And will come in August, they tell me now. It was July, now it's August. Of all kind of the pro-am headset people, Somium, I don't know much about them. They have a lot of money, but they don't sell a lot of stuff. Virgin Ears is super big in Europe. They do a lot of flight simulators, ultra high-end kind of stuff, and then Lynx is the original mixed reality headset Kickstarter that I'll get one of these days. They all threw money in and made sure that they locked up, future licenses for these lenses to avoid another problem like Apple buying them, or Meta would be the likely one to target that. But Yeah, if you kind of hear about people that try that. So this is Sebastian from MRTV. He's good at lens analysis, headset analysis. Sadly, it's Bradley. If you watch him, I was also impressed with him. And then for all of us that aren't getting an Apple headset, is the Zapbox, especially if you have an iPhone 11. This is literally the Google Cardboard of AR, but it's a lot more than you think. It's got 6 soft controllers, image tracking, and I should make this big.
Are you just strapping your phone to your face?
You are, yep, watch them. It's a Google Cardboard for AR, but you get 6 soft controllers, and you get hand tracking because it's an iPhone, so you get a lot. You just look stupid doing it.
Where does the A come from? Or,
Augmented?
Going, or
What?
how is it AR?
So it's video pass-through AR. So those controllers he's holding have image markers wrapped around them, so they can be tracked. At some point he switches to hand tracking, I think, in this demo. But it's solid enough he was willing to do it live on stage with an audience. So that speaks to it really well. I mean, you can see how bright the lights are coming in onto the stage that you can't even see the audience. If that was a Quest, you wouldn't see anything. You would just see white. And somehow it would still track your controllers, but pass-through would just be complete garbage. So yeah, if you happen to own an iPhone and just want to futz around, I think that's really a plausible way to do it, especially if you're already working Unity. They're all Unity-based SDKs. But, and you'll look dumb, but you'll post videos to Twitter that look really good. People will be impressed. I think that's all I had for AWE. Did anybody else watch any of the videos or hear any news coming out of it? Okay, well then in front of the Apple announcement, like a couple days before, Zuckerberg had to be like, oh yeah, we're making new headsets, guys, everybody. And they announced the Quest 3 and said very little about it. Everything was already known. There's only a few specific things that they released, but they did match all the leaks that were already out there, confirming that the leaks were very good specifications of what's happening. So the pass-through is going to get a lot better. There's dual color cameras instead of one color camera and 2 low-res black and whites. It's going to have a depth sensor, so it'll have a bunch of new abilities that the Quest Pro is supposed to have and then got ripped away at the last minute. And then the big one is finally a new chip, going to double the GPU power. Still put it way behind an Apple M2 chip, but a big deal for Qualcomm for sure. And then finally, scene understanding, as in if you've tried to use the stuff that's built in there, who's gone and traced their desk and their window and their door? How many people? All right, that's pretty good because this is the audience that would do it. But yeah, I have to. But the way it is today, if you haven't seen it, you manually trace your door, and then you trace the wall and put the thing in the corner, and you do that, and that's how you get a couple surfaces into your Quest so you can bounce a ball off of them or whatever. So it's finally going to have a depth sensor. It's going to do this on its own. This is not an official video. This is obviously a pre-viz early prototype video concept. So don't pay any attention to what the mesh detail level is. Yeah. Yeah, so that's fake. That's the artist made that. But this is the kind of thing that you can expect, and it makes total sense with the depth sensor, as long as your surfaces are not black, like her cabinet is over there.
So it knows what your living room looks like?
Yeah. Yeah, and so a lot of that stuff will become automatic. Maybe we won't have to deal so much with Guardian. Hard to say. It all comes down to what legal risk they want to take with their software and people hurting themselves. Still nobody has fallen downstairs wearing VR that I've heard of, so I think we're fine.
I ran all over my house with the headset on. So.
Yeah, and I'm kind of known it whenever we run a test, my center point is halfway across my basement, a good 10 feet away from where I sit when I work, so that I can walk the whole width of the basement. Yeah, so it's thinner. It's got the same lenses from the Quest Pro, which are amazing. That's a wonderful thing. It's got the haptics from the Quest Pro, but to make it cheaper, it's not a full CPU phone deal with 3 cameras. It's infrared LEDs.
I actually think that's going to be better
Yeah.
because I'm sure people have used these.
You want to hold them up?
These guys, they're super awesome. I mean, the one thing about them that I really like is the quality of the plastic. when they went.
It is nice.
Quest,
Yeah.
Quest 1, which had really nice plastic, to the Quest 2, the plastic sucked, and it was super hard to get into, you know. But the downside is these things are pretty girthy, man.
They're heavy.
They're pretty heavy, so you feel them. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, each one of those is
So I
this.
think that solution's probably, from a use standpoint, going to be better.
Yeah.
You know, because there'll be less weight to the controllers.
And with
Even
that
though this is really nice, though. The tracking is amazing.
Yep.
You know, and you don't need to. It doesn't need to rely on seeing the controllers all the time. You know, but
In theory, you could use both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably true. Yep. Yeah, and then this was in the early leak, and Best Buy maybe confirmed it by putting it on their pre-order page. A single panel, 30% resolution bump, 120 hertz. So that's all great, other than the single panel part. I am, as a wide-eyed, high IPD person, I'm super disappointed in that. $500, launching at the end of September at the MetaConnect conference. We were saying we should probably have a watch party so we can do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing on the keynote for that. So we saw the leaked walking around the room thing. Here's the reveal, which tells you nothing, almost nothing, but looks neat. Yeah, it does.
what are you saying? Truth in advertising.
Yeah, maybe we can sue them.
So many.
So yeah, they told you almost nothing.
That looks good.
It does look good.
So the pancake ones, looks like.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with those that we can better than just because
Fresnel?
articulate with all the fringes on?
Yeah, so you can move your eyes side to side with the pancake lenses, and it's clear nearly to the edge. The Fresnel, it's like the first 30 degrees is clear.
And you can put these two on
Yep.
side by side.
Is that just like a material engineering thing? They found better stuff to make the lenses out of?
That's actually a good question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, we've got a picture for the Apple thing coming up, but it's super complicated. Matt did the first ones for 3M before anybody else put them into headsets, but it's an optic thing that should be this long, but they use
Folded optical path.
a folded optical path to bounce it through polarizers to get it much shorter. So
One of the lenses are like this far away. Pancake lenses are like this far away. Cool. And the light comes through the lens, bounces back and forth, and then comes into your eye. So it's traveling the same distance, but it's in a much side lens.
and the Fresnel thing was you got a small screen, make it bigger, and then turn it 90 degrees, shove it into your eye. Is a very cheap way to do that by having a bunch of lens rings in one spot. But as soon as your eye moves to the side, it's just garbage. This is traditional lenses, and actually 3 of them stacked together to do that. So you haven't tried a Quest Pro?
I mean, I have.
Oh.
I was wondering like what makes them like new exactly, other than just
they can manufacture them now, and nobody else could before. Yeah, and when you compare them, I got some shots on my phone comparing the Quest Pro to the HTC Vive Elite XR Pro to Super. Very big difference on the coatings that they use and how much they can suppress the ghosting that happens. Because the ghosts are insane. They're like upside down and smaller and a different color. And then as you move your eye, like the ghost does things opposite to it. So they're not without drawbacks. And the biggest one is their efficiency, because all that polarization, the amount of light from the panel reaching your eye is in the realm of 12 to 20%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you ever see a teardown of a Quest 2, or I mean a Quest Pro, there's like panel, giant fan on the back of the panel for the backlight. And Apple doesn't have quite that same problem, but still there's a lot of cooling in that sucker too. And the Vive XR, you can hear it when you turn it on. You hear the fan, which is a new thing. So, all right. Well, let's switch gears. Mark, you want to bring up a phone, and we'll talk about some Apple. There's an HDMI for you. What's going to happen? Should I plug it? I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
We'd have to do it anyway.
Yep. All right. Everybody hold your breath. Keep holding.
It worked last time.
I know.
You good?
We know any good jokes?
Just needs time to heal.
Favorite album?
I heard a sound. I don't see anything though. Hey, David, it's not working. David, it's not working.
I see it.
Very, very helpful sound.
Is the screen supposed to be blue?
And say no signal. Very helpful. It should work.
How many people watched the Apple keynote, or at least the last part of it? That became their most watched video kind of quickly, as to see. And how many people watched additional developer videos beyond? Oh, yeah, this is the crowd. That's great. Yeah, there's a bunch of weird details that they didn't explain, especially in the keynote, because they're targeting very specific things that they're selling. Not on the TV, it's still blue.
I think the only thing that I thought was odd in their decisions is that their Guardian,
Yeah, that came out really recently.
it just, wherever you start immersive experience, you get 1 meter forward and backward from that point, and then on that the exits. It's so ridiculous.
It's like at 1 meter, it starts to show translucent stuff behind your VR, and then at 1.5 meters or whatever, yeah, it's over.
And I get it, they're trying to fix your phone. But no link.
Well, for the little battery, they assume that's gonna be in your pocket or something.
It's
Yeah.
on you, so.
Well, I guess that's one way to super simplify it for their users, but
Yeah.
But it doesn't do room scanning, so you could still, and you can start it again, and it starts from where you start. So you could eventually just like get to a point where you fall off the down the stairs, 1 meter at a time.
One of the videos was a guy like packing a suitcase or something. See that one?
Really?
Seemed like, yeah, they were showing people using it, but
Yeah,
you can were moving around.
You can walk around with it in non-immersive stuff.
Ah.
So where you're just
Oh.
faster.
Got it.
But if you go to a full screen experience, it's filling all your vision. you
It's
can
working.
run the-
I see a cat.
That's on the screen.
Yep.
What's that?
yeah, that's cat.
So there was a bunch of
You can have this one. I'll have the free.
You've already done your intro, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Mark.
Talk in here.
Oh, there we go. I'll talking closer. Sound good?
Yep.
Good, okay. We're going to talk about, like Zach said, when you should have been telling jokes, but we were doing AV stuff.
Yeah.
The Apple Vision Pro, we'll get into it here. There's a decent amount to talk about. The very beginning of Pride Month, I think it's interesting to see how Apple presents things, and let's just build the biggest rainbow ever to show this is just an incredible thing from them. I think the big thing about the presentation is everybody watched the 2-hour presentation, and the first hour and a half was every single person in the world saying, let's talk about the thing. Let's get to the thing here. So I've got a couple of videos. We should have audio going through here, right? These are just a couple little clips to show how they presented this, so just in their words.
Vision Pro is a new kind of computer that augments reality.
Oh.
Switch audio output here to Ripsaw HD, is that right?
Yeah.
Looks like that's what it's called. Okay, let's try that.
I don't know if I'm actually going to get the...
Vision Pro is a new kind of computer that augments reality by seamlessly blending the real world with the digital world. It's the first Apple product you look through and not at. Vision Pro feels familiar, yet it's entirely new. You can see, hear, and interact with digital content just like it's in your physical space. And you control Vision Pro using the most natural and intuitive tools, your eyes, hands, and voice.
We almost lost the microphone here. All right, that was dropping down. We good? I saw it slowly kind
Do
of
the
moving.
gooseneck straight up.
There-
It'll support
okay, there we
itself.
go. Gravity's doing its thing.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
And one more video here. Okay, there we go. One more video.
Your surroundings become an infinite canvas. Use your apps anywhere and make them any size you want. Capture photos and videos and relive your most important memories in an entirely new way. Watch your movies, shows, and sports, and immerse yourself in games on a giant screen surrounded by spatial audio. And connect with people as if you're sharing the same space.
Comments
The
on that?
upside of those two movies are you can't move around.
In AR, you can move around.
You can or can't?
Can. Yeah.
Oh, in AR you can move around.
Yeah.
And we'll go
But
through some more
also,
of
it's
the
really hard to
details.
spot the battery cable in all these videos so far.
Yeah.
One of the theories on a lot of this stuff is that marketing thing where you only show people what they're ready to see, what they can understand. And if you show super immersive, crazy, wonderful AR things, like it's too much. So this whole squares in a $3,000 headset is probably aiming for that a lot for people that just can take in that much stuff. You know, unlimited screens is essentially
Like not this audience, but the general audience,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
people that haven't used VR.
And I think what's interesting is Apple is very much framing this whole conversation in their own way. So not a single mention of these terms, VR, metaverse, or artificial intelligence, not mentioned during the keynote. They did talk about some transformers and specific parts of AI, but they definitely are there. Should I just hold it? I can just hold it.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. I like you too. And they also position this as kind of a transition to spatial computing, which is their term. So we've got a lot of ways to talk about this, but they talk about the Microsoft being the desktop computing paradigm, iPhone obviously kind of setting the standard for mobile computing, and this being basically the intro to spatial computing. So interesting way to frame it. Thoughts
Yep.
on that all? Yep.
Although it's not their term.
Right. And if you look at the broad headlines, this is something it was the only reaction you saw, like $3,500, and it will be available early next year. But $3,500 was the overwhelming headline, which to me, it's obviously more expensive in a different type of device than the Quest, but it's also the same price as the HoloLens, which you just heard Zach compliment for a half an hour straight. So keep that in mind, and I think starting at, we'll get into kind of what that probably means. And we'll kind of go through some of the basics here, and then we've got some like things to think about and kind of conversation points. The operating system is Vision OS, so it's their spatial operating system. Obviously, it's going to be very familiar to other iOS and Mac OS based systems, but unique to what's required here. So what you can see here is that the the interface and elements of this are meant to look like they are in your room. It's like Zach said, it's a bunch of picture frames around you that gets people to understand, oh, I have Windows on my phone, Windows on my Mac, this is the same type of thing.
One of the fun bits, potentially a whole bunch of employees didn't know the name of this product, OS, or any other trademark term until the morning of the event. People talk about getting cards that they had to memorize. And then you see the videos, the videos reference XROS, all the developer videos, which was the old name.
The lead designer of the product didn't know it until the event.
Wow,
Yeah, I heard that on the John Gruber talk show.
that's insane.
That is insane. Primary interaction, they talk about this, eyes, hands, and voice. And they specifically went out of their way to call out controllers and say, no clunky controllers. This will be just your body and the things that you have with you, right?
Yep. When we get the sensors up there, we'll talk more about that.
And the people that, you know, I've not been hands-on with this, we're working to get out there, but the people that tried it said the hand tracking was surprisingly and shockingly good in that you just, after you used it for a few minutes, you just took it for granted. A lot like the first time you saw an iPhone with multi-touch screen and you just got it, you're like, oh, this is just how it works, and your brain just grokked it and used it right away. That's what I heard over and over again. And a few people said when it did glitch out, it felt like something was wrong. So it feels like they really kind of nailed that interaction.
They brought in a few.
Tracking, you know, it's really the linchpin there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They brought in a few VR experienced folks to do the demos, and they all started like this. And eventually it was in their lap or on the side of the couch.
And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, they did really special camera placement to make that possible that nobody's willing to do.
Yeah, and we've seen eye tracking, to your point, we've seen eye tracking before on a number of devices and tried it out, and it's always been very coarse, like what quadrant am I looking in?
Yeah.
And if you look at these interface and UI elements, they're pretty small. You think about tap targets on a phone, they're real small, and everybody said it was just completely natural. So I can't wait for a teardown and kind of more technical deep dive of that.
Oh yeah, some of the reviews talk about how the tap targets are noticeably smaller
Yeah.
in this because your eye is so much more precise than,
Hmm.
which is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I just can't wait to try it. Yeah, and you see they went out of their way to kind of show this where, like you said, Zach, you know, it's in the HoloLens, you'd have to hold it up and kind of like do the crab claw and like do this very, very crude kind of overt gesture, and just resting in your lap and doing that seems like a different way for sure. Siri will be the voice. People don't generally love Siri, and it definitely, you know, is not in first place among the voice assistants and text-to-speech technology. Apple is leaning into AI a lot though, so I think Siri's about to get a lot smarter, but they didn't really talk about that at all. But they've got the ingredients right in front of them.
Machine learning,
Machine learning, that's right, yes.
no AI.
That's right.
They did talk a little bit about that. They talk about how in the new iOS, Siri will remember your previous like right now, Siri is so dumb. It's like it's just
And that's what
like
makes
one
it really
thing you say.
challenging.
It doesn't remember the next time you say something. It's like there's no history.
Yeah.
And they did say they're going to improve the text to speech too. The speech to text. I mean, yeah, like it knows what you're saying better. The Siri AI.
And it'll be on device, so it'll be faster too, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And I think they, you know, it is a VR headset, but they are presenting this as an AR headset. So when you put it on, the first thing you see is the world. And the reactions to people that have seen that said it doesn't feel like you're looking, you know, it doesn't look like you're not looking through a pair of glasses, but it also doesn't look like you're looking through a headset. So that to me, and the resolution will kind of go through and get into more specs and details.
Focus.
Yes.
I mean, once we can get the holographic displays, then that'll disappear.
It'll be a while, I think, but like
Yeah.
to Zach's point, that just the the physics of that is really hard. But when you put on the device, you see the world around you, and it's augmented with whatever you've kind of chosen to have up in front of it. And then there's a dial, much like the Crown and the Apple Watch, that allows you to turn it into what's called the immersive mode, and that's where you can make your room disappear and get into virtual or synthetic environments.
And there's one of the two top air vents.
Yes, exactly. And if
It's like a race car.
If you've tried these environments, you couldn't really tell. They didn't really show people moving around a lot, but it feels to me they're probably doing something like Supernatural, where it's a 360 photosphere and then geometry closer. And honestly, like Supernatural on the Quest looks incredible. So picture that with significantly more resolution. These will probably look great, but they're not going to be the things that you probably create. Maybe there'll be an app store for them. Who knows? But
That's kind of showing the mix of VR and AR from that dial. one of the big concepts is there's a knob dedicated to VR versus AR, so you can dial in how much VR you want. It's very,
My messy office or this beautiful Alp environment,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, Alps environment, right?
it's very interesting.
Zach, you want to talk about this one?
Sure. I can't believe they shipped this. EyeSight is an external display for people to see your eyes inside the VR headset. And it's not a normal display. It's some kind of odd lenticular display. I don't believe in the terms that we're used to where it's a bunch of ridges per pixel, but they made one reference to that curved glass in the front is the lens for the lenticular display. One thing they did confirm outside of the keynote is that they're using all this tracking of humans on all the cameras to render different views for the different people around you. So it spots I'm close to Mark and Nick, and it does my eyes like this and my other eyes like this out that side of the lens. Maybe only 2 is something else we came across. It all unconfirmed because nobody saw it. It's only in video. Everybody saw the blue ghosty thing while you're in VR mode. Nobody saw the eyeballs in real life.
Aside
yet.
from the rendered video here, right?
Yeah, aside from the video. Oh yeah, and the counter to that, which is super brilliant, and I'm so glad, I hope other people do it, is when people come up to you when you're in VR and touch you and you go, ah, and fall down, it notices that people are looking at you and then pops them, and it says injects them into your VR view.
Do you have the clip of that where she like appears in the view? It's pretty smart.
I don't know if we have it handy.
Fades in and then
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So that part's brilliant, and I guess probably the other part's brilliant too, but at what price and what weight cost and processing cost.
It also, like one of the things I heard in the interviews afterwards is that they're now opening up the engineering team to grow much larger because they didn't want the team to be very big so it wouldn't get leaked so they could get it out. So now they can put more people on this now that it's out there. So here's the thing we're going to do, now build it, right?
Yeah.
You should probably talk about this too.
Sure.
You've seen a lot of these.
One of the things it has is the same thing as the front of your phone. The RealSense True Depth camera used to be RealSense, used to be Connect One. Patterned light, it sprays a bunch of infrared dots on you and then looks for distortions in them. So you can digitize yourself and kind of create this avatar that is not an avatar. It is a persona, not an avatar, Mark.
That's right. My bad, yes.
And meta avatars don't have legs. These don't even have arms. So people's reactions to this were a little bit mixed, but they also said a bunch of times this is very early. They got to talk to an Apple employee that had been pre-scanned. They didn't get to scan themselves and see themselves. And some people thought it was pretty good. Other people thought it was very uncanny and viscerally, upsetting, off-putting. Just not enough good animation on there because, again, it doesn't have really much in the way of mouth tracking or face tracking. It does have good eye tracking, and it's probably faking the mouth shapes from your phenomes.
It looks like it from the video for sure.
Yeah.
It looks like Polar Express.
It was pretty close.
Good reference. This is also the same app or the same functionality this app is used to basically scan your face to fit you for the custom kind of components that go over to fit your face. So it's very much a one-person device too.
Yeah. But they do have 6 months to improve it.
You mentioned the one-person device. I think that's the other thing I'm really curious about to see is how this handles multiple people in the house. Like if I want to let my daughter put it on, is she going to have to go through the setup process every single time? Or will it recognize her and remember like, oh, she just had the headset on 3 minutes ago. We don't have to calibrate it yet. Okay?
There is a guest mode. It's unclear if it will offer multiple accounts, and most Apple devices don't, aside from Mac OS, right? Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, can it remember multiple guests? Or does it even, or do you have to go through the setup process every single time somebody puts it on who isn't the owner of it?
Yeah, unclear on that. And it sounds like there's a 5-minute, you get a pass key, and you have 5 minutes to basically enter that in. Otherwise, it resets the guest mode. But there's not a whole lot of information about that out there right now. Yeah.
It's also physically a one-person device. Well, we got slides. Yeah.
Much higher resolution. They very much have not targeted gaming on this. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but they really do target using the apps that you use on your iPhone, which are largely text and image based. So they went after very high resolution, and from everyone trying it, like this isn't, a lot of times these VR things look good in mock-ups, or especially HoloLens video looks great until you put it on, you realize like that's not the same thing.
Yep.
This, everyone said, was very legible even at larger distances with relatively, small windows there.
This is really the thing that is indisputable. It has the highest res screens of anything other than a Vario. And it probably has better screens though and better contrast than they do.
And cameras, I would definitely expect
Definitely the cameras, yeah.
Yep. If you have a Mac, you can basically look at it, and Apple has their pretty slick integrated system, and you can take one 4K screen basically from your Mac and put that up and project into the world. It sounds like it's just one from now, and that is a lot. Even direct Wi-Fi, that's a lot to stream at high bitrate if you're doing a lot of things. But having your Mac projected up, I could see this being a really neat use case. Probably not enough to justify the cost of it, but if I work on presentations, which I do a lot, being in an isolated mode to do that seems really nice, and then having other kind of native apps around you. But it isn't like you are going to have infinite screens from your Mac. There may be third-party apps that do that, but that's currently the plan. They didn't say infinite screens for your Mac, and infinite on any computer is kind of a thing, so yeah. But
It's got a browser inside of it, like it's got its own. You can have as many screens in there as you want.
It's got as much processing as a Mac, so you can run native apps, a bunch of them, yeah.
And the infinite screens too, there is the concept of a screen being in focus and being updated, and then being kind of in the background when it's kind of faded away, and just being there. So a lot of, if you switch between apps on your phone, you see the kind of preview of it, and then when it opens up, it kind of gets itself up to date. So I suspect something similar to that. That's an interesting question. Do you want to maybe talk about the resolution a little bit, Zach?
Sure.
It's a weird thing to kind of say. It's more like pixels per degree than resolution proper, right?
Yeah, so they haven't announced it, but there is a BOE OLED panel that's 4800 by 4500. And you multiply those out, and that is the 23 million pixels they were talking about. And they definitely showed an OLED panel when they showed the magnification of it. So that's very likely. And you can't know the pixels per degree without knowing the exact shape and how much binocular overlap you have between your two eyes, meaning showing the same stuff on both eyes versus cheating and spreading them apart. But it's going to be in the range of, everybody thinks like 50 pixels per degree. And the benchmark most people say is 40 pixels per degree. That's what the HoloLens 1 was. If you ever used one, you got over the fact eventually that the field of view is way too small. And then you said, I can actually read text in here as long as it doesn't have a white background. Because it's a rainbow now. And that was exactly like 42 pixels per degree, or 41. And this is roughly 50 plus. For comparison, even the Quest Pro is like 22 or 24 or something like that. So, big difference.
Yeah, huge difference. And this is kind of the working, on my Mac, seeing through to my office.
And the thing that got me most excited was they showed someone running Xcode mirrored into the mirrored into the Apple Vision Pro, deploying to an Apple Vision Pro. That would be amazing, just to do the final steps of debugging and deploying and all the BS with the certificates.
That's a great workflow. That's even gotten a lot easier these days. And you can see here the background is visible, and then by turning the crown, you would see this kind of immersive mode where the background kind of goes away, and you can get rid of the real world. They talked about a new file format for 3D camera and photography. This is an example of what the internet called a lonely divorced dad, taking a photo, a live 3D video of one of his daughter's birthdays, or they're playing, and it's a 3D kind of two cameras taking a video of that you can review in 3D. Everyone thought it looked really good, and they showed off other kind of stereo video. One was short clips of being at a basketball game, being courtside. I have to think those files are huge, and that's maybe not a thing that would be streamable, but we'll find out, I guess, once we know more, right?
Yep. We don't know too much about the resolution of those.
Apple bought the NextVR.
Yep, NextVR.
Which is their whole deal was
Streaming.
Stereoscopic capture of sports events.
Yeah.
So they basically have a whole division of their company that distributes content.
And they did talk about the video format in one of their developer talks. It's a new kind of stereo compression that knows that most of the things in both sides for both eyes are 90% identical, as opposed to the way that 3D Blu-rays happen, which are chop the resolution in half and encode entire frames that are 90% identical and code the whole thing. So it won't be as bad as that, and it should scale to higher res than that with the same bit rate. Yeah.
So it means the next iPhone is going to have the camera.
We think so, yeah.
Although they'd have to be farther apart than that, so it might be that they need to be on the opposite corners of the iPhone potentially, or maybe 2 iPhones or 2 GoPros or something like that, right?
With the depth sensor, they can get 90% of the way there. And I mean, if they couldn't show somebody shooting stereoscopic video with an iPhone in this, but that would make a lot more sense from a use case, because
Yeah.
they haven't announced the product yet, but
Yep.
like, this looks really creepy, but if you say, oh, you just shoot everything with your phone,
Right.
and you pop it into your vision and have stereoscopic and stuff there, that's really compelling and not as creepy anymore.
And one of the interesting kind of analogs I heard was if you grew up in the 80s like I did,
Yeah.
there was always like the one person with the big video camera that had full-size video cassettes, and they would record video of something going on for like 10 minutes and just get back and join the party. It could be that type of thing, right?
Or they would hold the camcorder for the entire soccer game.
Yeah. Depending on who you are, right?
Depending on how old you are, it's either camcorder dad or VHS camera dad with the full-size rig on the shoulder.
And a good segue into gaming. This is basically them showing you running an iOS or iPad OS game with a controller. So it's not dedicated gaming support, and Apple famously doesn't really lean into gaming much. But this would be existing Xbox and PlayStation controllers that would work with existing apps.
At least they're not trying to make you use the Apple TV controller.
Which end is up, right? Yes. They talked about Disney being a partner, and obviously it didn't seem like Disney had much time at all to put this together, but what they're showing here is a movie with second screen content. That was kind of the buzzword for a while. And then they showed a very minimal clip of kind of the Magic Kingdom in 3D here.
Like a parade, but worse.
Yep. And
$3,500.
Sports, this was clearly just a mock-up of you could watch the game and then see all kinds of other kind of meta information around the game going on. But probably more interesting to get into some of the details and the
There we go.
screens and cameras and sensors and things. So maybe you want to talk about some of the sensors and
Sure.
then we get into the field of view?
Yep. Yeah, so the craziest thing that you haven't seen before is this camera's pointed straight down. That's so it can do hand tracking on your lap or on the side of the couch. And then the ones that are kind of forward are actually quite a bit angled outward, so it can catch the side of the couch too. Nobody's bothered to do that before. Some of the more exciting uses might be foot tracking or some form of arm or body tracking in the future. And then the whole array in the middle, it's got everything. It's got a time of flight depth sensor. It's got the patterned light. What does Apple call that on the front of the phone? Face.
LiDAR and then true depth camera.
True depth.
Yep.
Yeah, LiDAR and true depth both. And then just optical cameras. The optical cameras are not in a good spot for your face, for your eyeballs, because they put a whole screen there to show your eyeballs. They can't put the cameras there. But supposedly people thought there wasn't weird distortion going on or anything, so they did a good job at converting those. The one interesting thing about the inside, all of those infrared LEDs and cameras are going through the lenses instead of being around the lenses, like on the Quest and everything else.
Wait, repeat that.
Yeah, so over here on the right, all these little dots are actually going through the lenses. Here's the stack of their lenses. For everybody else, they can't. The lenses would do too much damage to what's happening with the emitters and the reflections, and they just put all the cameras and LEDs around them.
What's the benefit?
I don't know that there's a lot other than it can get more accurate. It can get closer to the center of your eye. Most of these work off a glint and trying to estimate, this is your eyeball shape and it's moved now because the glint shape has changed. But it's just unique. And it's unique because they have a totally different lens design. Did we end up putting that one in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. We can definitely talk through that. This is a good article on IEEE where they basically analyze what it is. And here they basically say that depending on the field of view, it's somewhere between 50 and 70 pixels per degree, which is, even at the low end, is insanely high and will just be very, very different than anything we've seen.
Wow.
In fact, Zach, you stood up at just the wrong time if you want to talk about
Yep.
lenses at all.
And is that because of the eye tracking, like being able to
It,
focus more intent?
it needs eye tracking to render it at that kind of resolution in a reasonable frame rate. Yeah, that's the only reason they can kind of pull it off. Yeah. So this is a third-party analysis just based on videos. It's actually Hypervision, our friends with the 240-degree lenses from Israel. The big call-outs are the fact that they can stack their lenses there and still have a curved polarizer in the middle. That's a big, hard-to-do problem. Anytime you curve or stretch a polarized surface, it changes what it does a lot, as in not uniformly doing a circular polarization anymore. But they're doing it. Meta's doing it supposedly in a 2D arc as opposed to kind of a 3D bowl like this. And then they dug up some old patents that kind of talked about this that Apple had filed previously. So it's not that we can say really specific things about it other than it's unique and it's better a little or a lot compared to even what's state-of-the-art in pancake lenses elsewhere.
And Apple obviously is manufacturing incredible things in terms of optics, or at least sourcing them, so it's not a surprise they've taken a new approach like this.
Yep, and then they bought Limback, who does even crazier, awesomer things. So another probably unique design is coming down the pipe.
And I'll go back one slide, back a couple slides here. You see there's two chips there. So M2 is basically a desktop class GPU. It's the thing it's the Apple Silicon chip that's in most of their Macs now. That's an M2, and you'll see there's an R1 next to it. And the R1 is a real-time chip. So real-time operating system, real-time hardware is different than a normal CPU and GPU. So basically the real-time chip is basically going to run the device, the pass-through cameras, all that work, so that even if, say, your apps on it crash, the operating system crashes, you will still see through and kind of be in a safe space. A really interesting approach to kind of divide those up rather than having one OS. You know, if you've ever used a Quest or any of the Quests, and something goes on and it hitches, the whole thing just slows down to a real bad frame rate. It isn't that it keeps doing smooth pass-through and your app gets slower. So that's really interesting, and they're also doing some stuff in the auto space where they want to basically become the visual operating system for the car, and that would require real-time OS and real-time hardware too. I swear I'm not doing anything.
Quit with the phones.
Yeah. They did show a few things from kind of App Store, like there's going to be an App Store and there will be people making apps, including probably many people in this room. The apps were not very impressive. They looked like 3D models just brought to life, so it looked like animated USTZ files, to be honest. But it was early. I'm guessing those people had no time, or they had under a week to say, can you put together something within these specs? And that's what they showed. The App Store, all the places that you spend a lot of time today are going to be there, including WebEx, because that's what Apple uses. Microsoft is going software everywhere, no matter the platform, so all the Microsoft apps will be there. And then Zach, you should probably talk about this one, but developer tools, there's one of the two big game development platforms that they highlighted, but there's some interesting intricacies there.
Yep, so Unity got mentioned, and then their stock went up by 20% within a minute.
It still sucks.
It does. And actually,
That's what I mean.
digging into what they actually do on this AVP, can we call it AVP, Alien versus Predator? Are we okay with that? Yep. They don't have special access. If you want to do any AR whatsoever, your Unity app will translate all of its shaders, all of its models, all of its particles, everything in the world to the Vision Pro render format. Probably build time, yeah, but it has to happen before runtime. You can render in your Unity renderer only in full VR mode, but then you'll never get to show pass-through, you'll never get room access, you'll never get eye tracking. So you can't actually render because the resolution's too high and you don't have foveated rendering to help you. Very interesting. So in theory, if Unreal didn't...
Maybe that's why the apps look like that.
Yes. If Unreal didn't have a blood feud with Apple, they could write to the metal layer like anybody can and translate all their assets to either translate all their assets or to just render to metal, because they do run on Mac OS on the M2 chip very well. But who knows if they will.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the volumes, like the render volumes and things like that?
Oh yeah, so
this is
do we have any pictures of multiple 3D apps? I don't think we do.
I don't, yeah.
So just like you saw a bunch of 2D windows, you can have multiple 3D things in a little enclosed volume. And that was something Magic Leap tried to do right off the bat with Magic Leap 1. super hard because you've got to get everything to render and not kill the frame rate. You know, you add your new widget and it destroys everything in your entire headset. And so that's one of the reasons that they make you hand off all the rendering to their renderer, is just so it can decide that you're a jerk and we're gonna not update you for a couple frames. And then if you are working in that volume scenario in Unity, the way they've implemented it is you do literally get a box that slides around your world and renders everything in that box. And then you can move to an exclusive AR mode that is more what you'd expect, and you got a camera that's where the headset is, and you're the only app running. Sometimes they call that immersive mode, which is sad, because then VR they call fully immersive mode. And everybody gets very confused. Apparently in AR and VR mode both, you can do all the AR kit stuff you're used to for the most part. You can get planes for tables and walls. You can get a mesh of the room. You can't get eye tracking data directly, but you can get all the hand tracking positions. And that was the one thing that looked disappointing so far, but again, they've got 6 months. If you watch the videos for not gestures, but individual digit hand tracking like you're used to on a Quest or something, it looked very laggy. Noticeably laggy, like 20, 30 millisecond kind of delay. And that might not be the case by the time they ship. I'd be surprised if it was the case by the time they ship.
And when you say 6 months, to me, early next year is basically through May.
Yeah.
So they've probably got like 10 months realistically, right?
Yep.
And that's subject to change because they can do what they want to do, right? Apple's obviously made a lot of press and headlines around privacy and security, so they put some things in place. These aren't unlike other devices, right? You as a developer can't see the room, you never get the video feed, so that seems pretty standard. But they definitely hit that up.
In AR you can though, right?
It'll be unclear if you get that from your device.
I mean on
or
a
you
phone,
Yes.
on an iPad.
Yes. Yep. This is different when it's on your face now.
Yep.
Yep.
The only disappointing developer stuff I've seen has been around what the differences between ARKit on the iPhone
Yeah.
and ARKit on this, the Vision OS, is significantly different, and it's much more limited.
Yep.
The comment was ARKit on iOS is really wide open. You can do a lot. It's pretty impressive. It's a more limited subset of that in this device for now, right?
To the point that they took away eye tracking data and were willing to shoot themselves in the foot in the case for the sake of privacy and not have any VR app ever that renders with Unity have foveated rendering, much less eye tracking. You literally get, if you do a pinch and zoom gesture, you can use your eye to place the center of that. You get at one instant in time, right when the pinch starts, you know where the eye was, and then you never know about the eye again. So if your eye is highlighting UI elements, that's the renderer doing it, it's not your software. Your software is like, I would love for this to get highlighted sometime, it should look like this. And the renderer is like, I'll let you know. Oh, no, I won't let you know. It'll happen or not, just go away. We hate developers.
That could change in the future, but for now that's the case. That could be a term and condition you have to accept or something like that, right?
Well, you do have to even accept to, what did they say about it? To even turn on foveated, I think. Yeah.
Maybe there'll be more options in the future. We'll see, right?
And it's good for privacy. It's also
Yep.
super good strategy to depth charge Google and Facebook's business model for the future.
They are doing that for sure. The iPhone app that scans your face scans it for custom fit. So in the future, when you go and buy one of these, they will have parts of an Apple store dedicated to trying them on and getting you scanned and getting the custom components. So it looks like there may be 4 different pieces of pads that they kind of fit together based on the shape of your face. But it's going to be a lot like the big screen VR headset, where it really feels like it's designed for one person. And there was starting at $3,500, what does that mean? There probably aren't multiple memory configurations, but if you need any kind of eye correction glasses, do not fit under this. So you'll get custom lenses suited to you. These will not be cheap. I'm not sure what these are going to cost, but it seems like, yeah, $250 each, $500 for a set of those. If you have 2 people in your house that wear glasses,
Let's go back one and check out those
vents.
vents.
Yeah.
Back one.
Oh, back one, yeah.
Like a race car, look at that. That's a lot of air.
It is.
It's way more than a laptop.
Air moves quieter through larger vents than smaller vents, so
Yeah.
that's good, right?
One interesting thing is that there's speakers in that.
Speakers are by your ears.
Yeah.
They got bumps.
One interesting thing about they would take your glasses,
Shine light through them, right?
lenses,
Yeah.
right there.
Yep.
So within 3 minutes, they had lenses that were basically identical to your glasses.
I heard they were shining light through your lenses to see what lens you would need. So they probably had a big kit of them.
That might be.
But interesting to try that on for sure, right?
For their demos, they were, everyone went into a room, they took away their glasses, did a bunch of stuff, and when they walked into the headset, it was already configured for them, with the lenses already inserted.
You didn't see that happen, right? Yeah.
So it was completely frictionless.
Yeah.
Went in and it went.
Lasers.
That's a good show right there, right? We'll go faster here since we're kind of running out. The UI, UX and development work. The SDK and simulator's out, so if you have a Mac, you can download the Xcode 15 beta, and you can run the simulator. So I've got a little screenshot of that. People are uncovering things. The Guardian safe space. We weren't sure what this was going to be like, but you want to talk to you a little bit, Zach?
Yep. Well, people are saying a little bit earlier.
The LiDAR thing, right? Sort of like the HoloLens did.
Yeah, so it is scanning your environment, but it doesn't consciously show you that it's doing that. And essentially, the way I read the restrictions, if you're in VR and you put the headset on, you're now at the center of a 1.5 meter radius, so 3 meters across. And if you go 1 meter, it'll start to make your VR transparent and show you some furniture outlines. And if you go to 1.5 meters, it just ends the VR for you. So that, well, I mean, already without controllers, we weren't going to do much VR, but now we're really not going to be moving around very much unless we're in AR mode, where
it really does feel like a
seems like you can
stationary,
move.
seated
Yeah.
type of experience for VR.
Very
right?
stationary or very standing, one spot kind of thing for VR.
The SDK and docs and things are actually really good. Like it's for version 1.0 and just launching. This is a good example of some of the interactions and kind of what this looks like. And you'll notice again, hands on the knees doing the gestures to make things happen.
So the one thing I was concerned about as a developer was this part, because all I saw was pitches,
Yep.
and like what we need is hand tracking for surgical tools.
They do have a video that shows the full hand
Yeah,
tracking
we
with
did
each.
find some,
Yeah.
some stuff to back that up a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but the way it was presented was really like you were talking about, like consumer facing.
Yeah, very dumbed down almost.
Yeah.
You just need to change how you do surgery. I think that's the answer.
That's right. It's all like Reiki.
I mean, if anyone can impose that on you, right? One interesting thing for people who have done WebXR, which is probably not a ton of us, but the Safari browser does do WebXR. We found some videos online, and it looks like you have to inject a specific parameter or setting into Safari to enable that, but it does work. But you have to. I haven't found any live demos of that, so we'll have to do basically like a local host running it on a machine and doing that. But that'll be a thing that'll allow you to do VR from a browser.
And real quick, just because we mentioned surgery and hand tracking, so the one workaround that people have to do controller-like things is the fact that AVP supports image tracking and object tracking. So if you imagine that $80 thing instead of the $3,500 that had the little image markers on a stick with some buttons, like that is exactly what VR people are doing to justify their expenditure on this device. And so you could track mock surgical instruments with just an image tag of some kind on them.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an application that's come up a bit
Yeah.
for attempts to make a more haptic experience.
Yep.
By having a polymeric model and tools that you're holding.
Real physical.
Instead of
Yeah.
controls.
Yep.
Yeah. The market wants that.
Yep.
Surgical gloves with QR codes.
There you go. This is a little view of what the simulator looks like. It runs really well. I'll just play this, but since you don't have the device in a 3D environment, they have mocked up different environments, light and dark environments, and then you can play with the basic built-in apps, and obviously you can build your own or build the sample apps that are provided.
Nice choice.
Hey, right? Play to the audience here. This is a big Safari window with the website for this meetup in there.
Yep.
And then one interesting thing is Apple leaned into kind of mobile AR early, and the USDZ spec is how they do 3D models. So one thing you can do on their websites if you're on the phone is like look at this MacBook in your space, and you can see a pretty realistic 3D model of a MacBook in your space. You can do the same here, and it just works, and that just becomes a 3D object that's in your space that then you can move around at real world scale.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's like a quick thing on what people are saying in general. Guy I follow, I like, it's far better than I expected, and I had high expectations. That's Ben Thompson. Tip-a-tap basically said just the basic gestures just feel magical, and like they've kind of done this in a way that we haven't seen before. I haven't heard the best thing about the keyboard yet, and that wasn't fully, I think you weren't supposed to try it during the demos, but a few people did and said it definitely felt like it was a work in progress. The weight has been an issue for some people. It is metal and glass, it's not plastic like most things we see, and plastic weighs less. But we'll see on that. It looks like they're also talking about adding a head strap that would go over the top of the device to kind of keep the weight on the top of your head, not kind of pressed on the sides of your head.
And those two bumps on the side, we were talking about speakers a little bit earlier. That's the audio.
Yep.
And they bothered to bump it out and make it slightly ugly in order to get some bass response, which is a good sign.
I fully support that.
Yep.
Fitting stations in stores, and then maybe a lightning round here through some of the thoughts. Zach and I just kind of put our heads together and thought through a few things. There is a shot here of what the speakers look like, and you can see them moving, so they're obviously speakers. And this is how the device and strap and fit come together.
We didn't say at the back is fabric and it's ridged for airflow.
Yep.
So it's not rigid, so you couldn't do a lot of the battery and back kind of counterweight stuff.
There's the speaker right there.
Yeah.
So a few things here. It's an AR device first that you can dial into VR, but so it is VR hardware that's acting like augmented reality. It's kind of the opposite of all the devices today. It feels like a setup for the future, right? When they, at some point, can make see-through AR devices. What's your guess on time frame on that, Zach, if you had to look at the crystal ball?
I don't know. One of the interesting things that we don't think about because we've never had one is a very good, instead of see-through, but like this, artificial reproduced pixel device is that you think of that name, Apple Vision. You could have supervision, you could have a zoom lens, you could have infrared, you could whatever. See-through is good for safety in real-world tasks, but this is better for not that, for everything else. So it's hard to say, but they have that battery pack to all prepare us for the day when we have glasses and can't afford to put batteries and processing on them and have an even bigger pack than that. But yeah, I don't have a prediction. I think we'll get at least a couple generations of video pass through.
Yeah, it is interesting too to think about the things you can do with screens, like you're saying, magnifying if you have bad vision, or
Yep.
even normal 20/20 vision, you could have 40/20 vision, for instance, right?
That's another view that I heard, that it's a Trojan horse, this battery pack.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Because the idea is, exactly, now all these people used to the idea of like, oh, it's okay to have a battery pack.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna have the CPU and everything else is all gonna be in there.
I was
Makes
pretty
sense.
amped about having a separate battery pack. I thought
Yep.
that was a great idea. That's one thing about these that they're freaking heavy, And that's the downside with it actually being heavier now.
Yep.
And it took that to get the battery off your head.
And it sounds like the battery, if you charge it at about 30 watts, you can run it infinitely. So even though it's an M2, they are powered down compared to what's potential in the laptop. So there's probably going to be thermal throttling and other things going on, right? Obviously. It feels like and is priced like a device from the future. That's for sure. The Pro signifier obviously suggests a non-Pro future, and maybe it's this one but cheaper in 2 years, something like that. Meta and the Quest are built on Android and Qualcomm, obviously, so they don't control the hardware, but they can kind of make suggestions. Apple is just fully integrated, and that's why they're the best chip maker in the world today. They own the full stack, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how, could Meta even make a device like this if they wanted to? It's unclear,
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
Not, they had to wait this long for the second chip from Qualcomm.
And I don't think it's direct competition. I think they're definitely going after different ends of the market. Facebook wants as many people, Meta wants as many people in the world to have these, and they're focused on gaming and social. Apple really just looks more like a personal kind of work device. Yeah. Largest market possible for Meta, and the Apple Vision Pro is starting high-end and kind of niche for sure. We talked about this. It can capture unique 3D photos and videos, and they are working with camera manufacturers. So my hunch is there will be either kits or cameras you can buy that will do that. I think it's interesting too. Like there isn't a primary use case. They talked about work and FaceTime and things like that, but the iPhone didn't come with an app store, and they were sure that everything you could ever want to do on a phone would just, Apple would make it for you. That was Steve Jobs' assertion. That's not the case. And when they launched the watch, they said it could do all these things, but they hadn't determined what the use case was, and it turns out it's fitness and health. So, yeah. So I think it's okay that's not figured out. It's not this one thing. Us developers are going to figure that out for sure. Partner apps look pretty simple and limited. I think they just didn't have much time there, but it will be interesting to see in AR and VR mode how much you can do. This is interesting too, like the last slide is coming up next, but it's interesting to watch the reaction. If you're doing VR development now, you are on Windows and Android, that's just the world you're in, and therefore a whole bunch of that world, you know, is using Android phones, is not at all in the Apple ecosystem. So you have a bunch of people who are getting into something that's brand new. You also have a whole bunch of people who know iOS but know nothing about spatial computing, and all this is brand new, and you can listen to the Apple podcasts, and it's like we were in 2013, which is kind of amazing. So just interesting to see that mix between people, but then there's a decent number of people I see and know here who are doing both, and these people are probably poised best, right?
I think one thing about that is that I think Apple intentionally crippled VR development on their platform so that when they rolled out their device,
It's not a bunch of ports.
there's no competition.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's interesting.
They don't
Yeah.
want a comparison of any kind
Yep.
to a Quest. Yeah.
I did see Beat Saber with fingers, and that looked pretty fun, but it's not going to be the same as Beat Saber for sure, right? Kind of overall takeaways here. Like I said, Apple's kind of uniquely positioned to make a device like this, fully integrated stack. Just like you said, no controllers, very purposely existing, VR ports will be challenging, and there will be new apps, right?
Yep. Yeah. They just don't want that market, not now. They'll have it eventually whenever they want it.
Just like with gaming on the iOS, right? The whole industry's kind of been waiting for this. Like AWE was a weird event this year because, hey, next week there's the thing coming that we all know about that we don't know about yet. And I think this is a big step forward. I don't think this will be bad for Meta. I think you joked about it early on, but everybody now is looking at this world as a real thing potentially, and that's going to be good, I think, for everybody, and especially for Meta. I can't buy this next year. I can't even afford it. The following year, I'm going to get this $500 device, right?
Yeah.
And it also, you can just see Meta's tune changing because they know there's another big player coming after them for sure.
Yep.
Anything else, Zach? Any questions or anything?
We benefit from that for sure.
Yeah.
If there's some competition. I know, like, I was pretty eager to have this happen about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
And it was awesome when it finally did, right?
absolutely.
Marty, can I bug you for the Swift developer perspective? You've done both, but if you had never done AR, VR, like, what did you take away from the keynote and then the State of the Union afterwards?
I mean,
phone only or iPad only?
well, so one thing you guys haven't mentioned is that it's going to run all the iOS apps. So, I mean, this is like hundreds of thousands of apps that'll run day one in the headset. And that's, they're all just 2D planes, but that's kind of what Apple's showing off, right? Like, it does all these different things. So, again,
Good point.
there's an app store, hundreds of thousands of apps already that'll just run. I don't know, what do you want me to say? I've been waiting for this for like 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for it.
So not you, but somebody that only does Swift or only does iOS, iPad.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, having, worked in, on some, like, I don't know, 3 different VR platforms with 3 different frameworks, like, that were all of them felt cobbled together. Apple's APIs feel solid. Like, these are what we should have had for Oculus. These are what we should have had.
Agreed completely. Even the simulator is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the simulator hasn't crashed on me. It's like less crashy than Unity, like, which is pretty amazing.
They spent like 10 years on it though.
Yeah, and a lot of the apps that come out, like you think about really interesting 3D AR apps, like maybe things like Skyview are going to be pretty amazing here with minimal changes. But then some of the apps that require multi-touch and other things may be kind of weird because it's where you're looking and pinching, and those may not feel very good. So even though every app's going to work, not all of them are going to map directly.
For sure.
But it does feel like they're really pushing this as make 2D apps in a 3D world is kind of step one, and I think all the existing iOS developers are very good at that. But it's going to take us a while to kind of truly figure out what the best use case for this thing is, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because I've seen a bunch of reactions already from developers that I follow that are trying out their apps in the simulator, and these are they're not like making 3D apps. These are just their 2D apps that they're just running and seeing like how it feels, how it looks. But like no one's gonna really know until we have the device, right? Like it feels like, oh yeah, this is really fun to play with, but like I'm ready to test in a headset now.
One thing probably worth mentioning is they're going to have 6 places around the world where you can go and actually try your app on a device. So stations that you'd go to and get early access to them. We did this when the App Store launched. I think Chicago was the closest one, and you could actually.
Oh, I thought they would just announce Cupertino. Is there one in Chicago?
I think there's 6 total. Not Chicago. I think the closest one is, I think it's Cupertino, and that's basically like international locations.
Yeah.
Chicago example was a previous?
Yeah, for iOS, you could go and get early access to the SDK in Chicago. So we signed up and did that, and they were like, hey, here's what's going on. It's still in beta, but we're working on it. So I think it'll be something similar to that.
I mean, they did announce that they'll have some dev kits next month, or they're opening up like a request form for dev kits next month. It would be awesome.
Unclear what that's going to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It could be like there's 4, or it could be there's 100,000, right? Like, I mean, it could be that they're going to send out a lot of dev kits. Who knows? So I have my fingers crossed.
So they've got apps they're targeting. They've probably already got apps they're targeting as their wish list of things that should be on here.
Yeah, our friend August works for a cool company that is like definitely working on a VR port of a very successful game for the App Store, and I asked him like straight up, like, okay, so do you guys already have one? And he's like, I cannot answer that.
Oh. Yeah, wouldn't risk it if I could answer.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if people already have them.
Cool. Because yeah, they'll have Halo apps they want that might not get ported because they do the math and there won't be enough owners to buy them, but they still want the app to be there for the videos.
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but like Apple's game, like, they've never focused on advertising that their platforms are good for gaming at all. But they have this, Apple Arcade, where they're like funneling money into developers for their platform. And I've got to imagine that they're just tapping some of those Apple Arcade developers and saying like, hey, let's give you the same amount of money and just make sure that it's a good experience on the Pro, on this Vision Pro. Cool. I imagine that's happening.
Yeah.
Confirmed. Yeah.
Any other main points we forgot to? Yeah, here you go.
I think they announced also that the only way to purchase the headset is going to be to get an appointment at the Apple Store and have it fitted to you. So you won't be able just to buy it off the shelf and take it home. It's going to be exclusively based on
At least they have stores, though.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing that I've heard a bunch of people talk, again, I haven't seen one, so I don't know if it's true, but all of the simulated like room stuff that they were demoing with all the AR is all fake. And the actual resolution of the pass-through camera is significantly lower than what they showed in all their video footage. And a few people have talked about it. Daring Fireball did a whole extensive post on
Simulated footage, right?
Yeah, but I think it's partly because it's a trade-off of the amount of data that they have to process and the compute on the device. So the screen resolution is way higher than the camera feed the pass-through cameras can recreate. So content running on the device looks amazing, and also text is amazing, and photos look amazing. But your photo is going to be a sharper, clearer image than the pass-through version of the camera feed that's coming into that set. So there'll be a clear difference between the two.
One of the VR guys, like Ben Lang, I think, called that out, that if anybody's complaining, it's not the lenses, it's not the screens, it's the pass-through cameras.
Yep.
We're not as good.
We saw that even when we were testing optics and stuff with 3M, where it's just like, if you take an optical target and you put their lens on it, it's razor sharp, like it looked perfect. And then you put that on top of an LCD display, it looks like garbage. And that's just because the dots that are there just can't reproduce the same visual fidelity of the actual optics, what the optics are capable. And in this case, with their rendering technology and the sheer amount of pixels that the screen has, it's amazing, but they actually can't, they don't have hardware fast enough
Yeah.
maybe not even cameras that are efficient enough to run at the resolution that the screen is actually capable of. So they've kind of dialed that back quite a bit. It's kind of interesting.
And in mobile AR, they do some interesting tricks on masking. So if you have a mobile AR session up and you put your hand in front of the camera, the resolution of the mask is actually super low res, and they use AI to scale it up. So I'm imagining they're doing a bunch of that stuff too, but we'll see, right?
Yeah, and that's the one thing, like if you're a sim racer, sim flyer, this will be the best VR headset that you can afford.
Watching movies alone too.
Or movies. Movies alone on your couch in front of your TV. This is the way to do it. All right. Yeah. Yep, exactly.
That's a good presentation.
Good job, you guys.
Thanks.
I also found out why this didn't work. It needs a firmware update.
Oh.
I forgot this computer. That's a real thing.
Of course. Why didn't I think of that?
Nick, do you want to pull up the Ghost website or anything for just a visual to have here?
Oh, sure.
So we've got the other browser ready to roll somewhere, right there.
Okay.
You could either do it in there or I got two browsers open.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Don't do that.
Okay.
The music. I don't know what that was. Okay. Is that your primary? You'll have to restart the stream whenever you want to.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start. I planned on making a presentation, but I didn't get stuck on it. So unfortunately, just got to listen to it. And sorry.
You're a pro. You can wing it.
So I'm Nick from Ghost Productions.
Here, talk into here.
Okay. I'm Nick from Ghost Productions. As Scott Gaff knows, thank you, man. I've worked in medical visualization in town since the mid-90s, working with animation, and then in about 2014, whenever the first Oculus SDK was released, we started playing around with VR stuff and failed a lot, and then played around with cardboard stuff, did all that kind of thing, but didn't really lean into it until probably 2018, and it was just before the Quest 2 or the Quest was released. It was the Rift headset was released, and it seemed like there was a lot of potential there for the medical industry. So we built a small development team. RJ was one of the people that I think many of you know. He worked with us at Ghost Productions doing our single player use cases. One of them was a total knee that turned out pretty cool. We did some things with skin deformations and stuff that was really fun.
That's on App Lab?
That's the one on Steam. The one that's on App Lab is a multiplayer. I want to say platform. That might be using the word wrong. Maybe it's more like a framework. But we developed pretty quickly after the Quest 2 was released. It became clear that our clients wanted to be able to communicate with people over long distances in VR and talk about medicine or whatever the thing is that's happening. And a local company named Spinology that I had worked with way back that I actually met my business partner at. They're a spine device manufacturer, and they worked with us to transition this VR simulation that we made into a multiplayer, and that's what that one is, that App Lab version. So we started that with Pun in Unity.
Photon.
Yeah, Photon,
Yep.
and built the framework around that for the multiplayer. And a lot of the elements that we learned in that, that we transitioned for this particular simulation, we kept, about like the OR that we built and how the mechanic works to teleport around, things that we learned from our client base, that they needed some more specific, simplified use cases so that it was more approachable for them. And I mean, one of the biggest challenges is almost all of our clients have never seen VR, never touched a VR headset. And so that's challenging on its own, right? So there is some things that we've tried to do, like put in a couple of tutorial steps. And in this case, this company, Avita Medical, they have a system called Resell, where they sort of morselize. They take a very small, if you have a burn across a large part of your body, like a big part of your leg, or even like 3 burns on your legs, you'll see them in this simulation. They can take a small patch of skin that's thinner than a typical skin graft sample, and then you can process that into a colloidal solution where you spray the epithelial cells onto the burn, and it's a bit like the lattice graft that you traditionally make, where you take a patch of skin that's a little bit thicker than this, and you cut it up like expanded sheet metal, and then you may have seen this if you know anybody that has serious deep burns. They'll have this sort of pattern in the scars that they get, where it looks like cross-hatching. And so this product was developed to try to stimulate better growth for scars for that application where there's a very deep burn, but also to not need to use a lattice graft for some burns that are less deep and more superficial. And then so the scarring and the healing process helps people to have more mobility and things like that. It's a super cool product. And so it was nice to be part of it. The reason we were working on it was they had adopted VR as an idea to help them train people over long distances. And in this case, they have this kit that you'll see in a moment here, that you go through the process of taking the skin sample and then chopping it up and making the colloidal solution, right? So there's a lot of steps to it. And they, in order to train at a distance, would need to send this kit out with a person, with a surgeon, and they could use the kit, but it was a one-use thing. So you needed to like teach people how to use it and then make sure you remember and retain all this stuff. You're gonna get one chance. And just like most things in medicine, you never get a chance to fail. And that's why medicine needs simulated-based training, right? Because like it's a mission-critical field, has no really, it does have simulated training, but it's just not widespread enough to allow people to fail a lot. And that's how we learn. I mean, just ask me. I failed a business 3 times until it finally, took hold. That's Ghost Productions, by the way, this company. But you fail, you learn from it. That's the whole idea, right? And I know I'm speaking to a crowd that understands that, but in this case, they built a VR simulation with a company and the one that was made, the developer that did it, I have a lot of grace, I guess, or I guess empathy for fellow developers, regardless of whether or not they're competitors. In my opinion, more competitors the better. The medical field needs it. But the problem was the one that was developed, nobody finished it. So they had invested a significant amount of money to make this VR simulation that was only a single player situation. So
How many minutes did it take?
well, it took me an hour and a half to get through it, and so that's a long time. And when you have people that aren't familiar with VR, trying to get them to go through something for longer than 15 minutes is really challenging. And so they need to buy in. They need to buy in the first 5 minutes so that they'll make it the 15 minutes, right? So 15 minutes was our target. And so the point is this particular client had already invested in this idea and it failed. And they were still willing to give us a chance to pick it up and try, right? So we invested a little bit because, you know, we're sort of startup in VR just like anybody is, right? And on that, used it as a way to enhance and grow our platform from the PUN photon to using the Fusion, the latest Fusion. So that took a lot of refactoring and that kind of thing, and also just to build the whole platform to be a lot more adaptable to new interactions. Because with the things that we do for medicine, there has to be a lot of interactions, and with this one, you'll see there's a lot of different ways to use things, different things to pick up and do, and each one has a set of interactions, and there might be 15 of those things for 300 steps or something. It's a lot to try to pack in, and so it needs to be efficient enough to run smoothly, to load so that it's not like screen tearing and giving people like weird feelings and stuff like that. So we spent a lot of time on that kind of thing. So I don't want to go on too much longer. I can start this at like 2 volunteers, and
What kind of surgery are we doing?
and then I can show you. Yeah, this is basically using their RECELL process to build the epithelial sort of spray,
Who's not going to pass out doing a skin
and
graft?
then you apply it. It's pretty low key. It's not like that total knee that was like.
So I've sat and watched the men, a lot of people cringe when they watch them. And I want to do it, I forgot to bring my glasses that actually fit inside the book.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I will just take a couple minutes to get them all started up.
Yep.
And then I think I've got the Guardians all set up though.
Do you
And
need to start the first one that you're going to wear, or does it not matter what order?
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But I'll probably just start with this. This is the kit that they developed for their Quest 2s. This is the one they send out. They're able to, with this system that we help them build, they're able to send this out and meet with doctors in VR instead of having to try to schedule time and send people and kits out across the country, right? And not just with one doctor, but like multiple people. There can be 8 people in there at one time. And that was something we wanted to help too, because a big part of medicine is the conversations that you have around the thing that you're working on. I'll just quickly say that Avita had gone through a management change in the middle of us working on this, and the new CEO hated VR, he said, and thought that VR was bunk and a bunch of bullshit and a big waste of time, which was pretty frustrating because we just pretty much like skinned ourselves alive to like make this thing happen. And and I was worried that the world wouldn't like get to have it, you know, because it's one thing to sell a thing, but you know, when you're doing something like this, one of the main reasons why you do it is because you want to be an artist and take the thing that you know how to do and benefit humanity with it, and that's a primary motivator for me. And so if the world doesn't get to do the thing that I, you know, made, then I don't get to do that, you know what I mean? We finished this simulation, and they had a meeting where the person that was working on it convinced the CEO to try it. And I got to go in there with the CEO.
Wow.
And
You nervous?
I was a little bit nervous. Yeah, you know.
Were you remote from each other?
Yeah, we were very remote. I was in Minnesota. He was on the East Coast. I think in Connecticut. And then the other person was in LA. So when we were all in together, right? And it was all brought together with this Quest 2, and he put it on, and I thought for sure he was gonna go in there, and like 5 minutes later, like, okay, I've seen enough, you know, and then it was over or whatever. But he quietly went through it. He like spectated the whole time, and by the end he was like, I can see how this would help, you know, train people. And I was like, oh my God, we're doing it, you know what I mean? We're doing it, oh my God. And I was like really proud of the woman I was working with at Avita, who had, you know, really tried hard to make this happen, you know. And so that's a big part of it. I mean, the relationship between you as an artist and a technician and your client, and you know, you can have that collaboration and make a thing, you know, that helps people, and that's pretty cool, right? So at the end of it, he green-lighted the VR, and that just happened, by the way, like a couple weeks ago. And so they had this big training thing, which I was invited to join. She asked me, oh, make sure you're available, but she never needed me. So that's pretty cool too, right? So they like trained a bunch of their people who are going to be trainers to go out and like sit in their offices and train surgeons on this thing. So, and other PAs and people that'll set up the skin grafts. So I'll just take a minute to set this up, and
How many people are you gonna put in?
I have 3 headsets. I have, because it hasn't been like, there's a lot of FDA regulation around it, I had to get an agreement to just put an APK on to 3 headsets and show you guys. I did get clearance to show it off because you guys are
We are allowed to stream it, so anybody watching, we're gonna take 5 minutes or so to reconfigure. Who's our volunteers for skin grafts? And then who's gonna be the doctors? 1 each. Come on down, fight for it. So it looks like are you using the Quest Pro for yourself?
Yeah.
And then we got 2 Quest 2s with standard interface, so if you know your glasses fit or you don't have glasses, come on down. I think we got 1 space there and 1 kind of behind the TV, so we don't punch it too much. And I'll try to hold the mic on Nick while he's narrating the experience, and we'll stream it up here. Just gonna do this.
So remember to get skin glasses. Oh, I should get mine without the glasses.
Look at all this website. There it is.
And then, sorry, I'll just get this one set up. Is that muted? Shit, I never checked that.
While we're waiting, we're all watching some knee surgery. Here you can download this on SteamVR and make yourself feel sick in 3D. God, I can't watch that. I can't do ligaments and stuff. Like,
Jake Parker used to just cringe whenever there's stuff. Oh, Jake, this is so cool. Look at that. No.
hearts are not so bad, knees are the worst. Yeah, and there's like, I did actually watch this before. There's some flesh dynamics on there when you're pulling the skin. And,
The Guardian's over that.
So that is a public app on SteamVR, and here's the one on App Lab. And they're both free. Yep, that's a video.
So what's the one on App called?
If you go to Ghost's website, it links right to it. Otherwise, you got to try to type it exactly. It's too hard.
This is where you tell me it's not going to run on my one.
I don't know if it will. It says it will. I did look at that.
It's like last month, I was getting
Yeah.
all excited about, trying out the stuff she was showing.
Nick, how does Ghostverse 2 run on a Quest 1?
It runs great.
All right, there you go.
This app for Avita doesn't run on it.
Yeah.
Do I need to? Oh, it is a capstan.
Oh, yep, let me show the... no, not yet. You got to restart it.
Okay.
And then you're going to have one more Quest 2 back there.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, start from the headset. This one looks just as bad. Yeah, what happens when you have clowns with you in the surgery room like this for the demos? Like, do they just go ham on the patient? There you go. That looks pretty good. That looks great. I think Scott's going to do it. Yep. And then probably your guardian, Scott, will be a little bit behind the TV, I think. Should I try to move the camera out front, or what do you think? Just like that?
You can move it a little bit, yeah.
Or just kind of, they're an inset on the video stream. Nick, I'll try to put a microphone near you, and it's okay if you punch it. You can probably see it on a Quest Pro a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a benefit of using Quest Pro. Okay. So let me know when you guys get to the tutorial part. There's a EULA that you have to hit OK on. Turn around. Sorry. Actually, that's a good point. We need to put arrows in there. And by the way, this isn't quite done.
Yeah.
But it's far enough along that I think people can use it. So there's a tutorial section to sort of show you how to do some things. And for you guys in the audience here, you grab this cube, you put it where it's supposed to go. You're presented with a forceps. You grab the forceps and use the trigger to close the forceps. So you pick up this little skin piece and you put it where it's supposed to go. And then the last tutorial that you need for this is how to make the syringe go, and we used the joystick. And the reason we used the joystick is because the previous simulation also used a joystick to draw back and make the syringe go forward.
Have you done this before?
So you just have to.
There's a continue button, but there's no laser and I can't physically do it.
Punch it.
It's like underneath here.
So that's where you might want to back up and do the recenter.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
It's all right. This is a live demo. This is what happens. With no way to see what he's seeing.
I know. So this is just to give people a primer of a couple things to do before they meet up with each other in what we're calling the lounge.
So they're seeing something totally differently than what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Well, it's similar to this,
But they're,
but
like you said,
we're not. Yeah,
Gotcha. You haven't hooked up.
we're not networked. Yet. Yep. Look at your wrist like a watch. Press that button. And now you have this. You're presented with this sort of tablet thing, okay? And you put your name in there. And then you hit this green button to go to the next field. And then it says Avita 01. Let's not go in there because we'll actually literally run into clients there. We'll go to Dev 01. And then you hit join. And then we'll join each other.
So is there a technical reason that you have to do it before you pull together?
Okay, that's a good question. I just turned my headset off. That's neat.
No, it's still going.
Did I join anybody else in here yet? Okay, there's Trent. Okay. You having any trouble with the?
Just short of, what was the step after?
Oh, you look at your wrist. Like there's a video behind you or in front of you to show you what to do. But, and then you just put your name in there. And then when that's done, hit the green arrow and whatever it says in there, get rid of it and say Dev 01.
That's the matrix code?
Yeah.
How do I replace it? Maybe just back up. Yeah.
You're floating ahead. So, we have a build we're working on right now where we put the physics back in here so these things like fly around. Okay, hold on, let me just make sure you're good.
Okay, so I'm in VA 01.
DEV01.
Yeah, just when we were replacing this.
Here, I'll come over there and look.
Brent, you start that.
I'm just shooting the code.
Like medical professional.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool. You can grab this tablet and
What's
there's
holding
like
that
a
on his
play
head?
button that's right by
His
the
glasses?
username. And then I'll just do it for this. So we're all together.
How do you toggle the pass through the video?
All right, I'll sit here.
Hey, how do you turn on like the lights? Like I'm seeing you guys right now. How do I
Oh,
back that?
I think you're on to the Guardians. I think if you back up.
Or double tap.
I think yeah, it's just like.
Double tap?
Yeah.
Double tap.
I think it's cool. Can you see me? Okay. So on the tablet, there's a couple of ways you can use these buttons to teleport around the table. You can also use the buttons on the controller. But we also use this tablet to start the simulation. It's the resell simulation. And so I'm going to launch that, and what that'll do is bring us all into the, oh, sorry, hey, that's my phone. If you look at your wrist, you can open, okay, and then if you click on this button that says navigation, or shoot, Trent, I think that's a good idea. You can, if you click on that, and then click on that resell button, and then launch. Okay, and now we're gonna get pulled into the OR together, and things will we'll start working on this thing together. If the network works. Okay, here we go. Okay, yep, I gotta reset this. Sorry. Because I set my headset down, I think I screwed this up. Can you guys see everything? Okay. What's it look like for you?
It's just black with resale VR.
I can see them now.
quit and come back in.
Do they stay behind in the room when you
Yeah.
do this?
But I don't know if I permanently broke it by taking the.
So, I see you right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
I don't know, Nick, how could you be so irresponsible?
All right, Scott's mad.
Yeah, guys, I think we gotta quit out.
It's actually working now.
Because I can't join you.
Is there, Nick, are all three on the same network?
All right. Well,
Are all three headsets on the same network? Does that matter?
they are. Yeah, we're technically together. It's just because I walked out of the thing we're working on right now is a use case where somebody leaves their and then takes their headset off. So here, I'll come back in there and I'll see if I can get started. It might look weird for me though.
Okay, see you.
You see Nick?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
still
but-
loading over here.
Yeah, I can't see them. So
Yes.
I think I can
Yeah.
see. For me, there's a bunch of stuff in here. Trent, can you open the tablet?
How do I open that?
Look at your wrist, and then hit that button that says navigation, and then go to the one that says reset, and then click it. Is it doing anything? No, I don't think it is. I'm sorry, guys. We gotta quit and start over. So hit your Oculus button, and then just hit quit. Yeah, and then we'll restart the app.
That looks like it's unknown sources, Avita something.
Yeah, it's going to be an unknown source. For you, it's going to be a company apps. Yeah, and it's MVP001. For you, it's in the apps, and then that little filter icon. And then there's in the drop down. There's
Everybody see this?
company.
What's that?
What is the name of it?
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. This is like exactly how you want things to go.
Yeah.
It'd be too easy if the live demo went well the first time.
So who does it?
Sorry guys, I actually broke it. So to skip the tutorial, you just have to look at your wrist and open the tablet. Yeah, and then just hit OK. Okay, there we go. Then we'll wait till it's ready. Okay, cool. All right, I'll bring us in now.
No expense.
Okay, we're gonna go in. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now one of you guys can do the surgery, or I can do it so everybody can see it. I guess that might be the best way to do it.
Probably.
So I can begin the training. So the first thing that happens is I'll be presented with. Oh yeah.
That's good.
Okay, why doesn't this say? God damn it.
Would it work better with the single headset maybe?
Okay, yeah, it's working now. Jesus.
There we go.
So this is Kyle. He's going to give us the stuff. We're going to put it on the table here. So what they do is they open this kit up. There's a person that helps. You're presented with the kit.
Oh, wow.
And can lay it onto the table.
Can we ask you questions while you're working?
Yeah.
So that avatar there, they're like a, what do you call them?
NPC.
An NPC, thank you.
Yeah. So this has. So what I'm doing here is working with this NPC gives me these things that are sterile. I'm sterile, and he's in a place that's yeah. Good one. So I'm given the parts from. He opens them up from the non-sterile area, and then presents them to me, and then I keep things sterile in my area. So now I'll start working. This is the kit right here, and the simulation is about setting up these different things. So each of these steps are important to Avita for people to understand. So one of the things that happens right there with this kit is if you press this question mark button to start it testing, it starts blinking these lights, which makes you as a user want to push those buttons. And if you do that, it'll actually break this unit. So that's one thing that had happen a lot. So what I'm doing right here is I'm getting this enzyme, this water, to mix the enzyme solution. So I put water in this dry sort of powder, and then I mix it up, and I'm given like a progress bar, and now I can take the enzyme and out of here that's all been mixed up, and it goes in to be heated up in this well right here.
So that thing with the buttons on it, that's a real thing.
Yeah. In real life, this is the thing, these steps that we're seeing, this is the thing that they would physically send to people to
That's
do.
the kit.
Yeah, this is the kit. So what I need to do is put all these components together. There's a bunch of little steps that I have to be able to do. And when you're done using the kits, you just dispose them, you know. There's a couple of steps that happen, the tray A and tray B. So now I'm going to go to my patient, and you can see there's these big wound areas. And first I have to measure them. So in this case, I'm just going to measure one of them. And then you're presented with a couple of different ways to calculate how big these burns are, and then how much what size skin sample you need to take, and then process in order to spray the stuff on there. And you can see this is a really bad wound, so it's already had a lattice graft put on it. And these are the kind of wounds that you might lattice graft in the past, and instead you're going to use this product. So I'll pick the phone app, because they actually just released this app where you can put this data in here. So one of the points of failure in the first simulation that they were shown from the other competitor was the user in VR had to do all these calculations separately using like the paper app. And it wasn't really something that they needed to know in order to understand how to set this up, right? They just needed to know that there was a way to calculate things. So that was one of the ways we used to simplify it. So based on these calculations, this is the size of like skin graft that you need to take. So this thing right here is called a dermatome, and it like shaves skin off at a specific gap. And so you need to set like how thick the skin should be to take it out. So then you grab this thing, it has a blade on it right here. And it's like a this, maybe one of you guys might want to try it. A couple of steps, so I'll get out of the way. So you can use the B or the Y button to teleport. You'll see like an arc come out. Yeah, that put you like in the middle of the workspace. You can, yeah, I guess that works. Okay, there you go. Turn around. Turn around. Okay, right here you'll see like there's, it's telling you to cut the skin samples. Okay, good. It's a haptic. If you click and hold the Oculus button, it'll like recenter you. Okay, great. So now you're cutting these pieces right here. Oh yeah, there's a laser pointer on the X and the A. So now you can set this scalpel down and pick up this forceps. I think it's asking you to do that, right? Oh no, we need to confirm that this is filled. We did that earlier. So I'll just hit this button. Okay, now you can hit the run button. It's gonna like do this for 3. So these all mean things to the people that actually work in this kind of thing. It's pretty esoteric in that way. But so you can pick up skin sample and then put it into well A. Okay. Cool. And now it's going to you can process more. You can process 2 skin samples at the same time. It takes about 15 minutes for it to. Sorry, I did that one for you.
Oh wait.
So anyone in the middle of this surgery can do things also, or you can hand things to Trenton, sorry. Like here, take that. No, you shouldn't have to let go. Like here, I can take it from you. Give it to you. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now we can use this syringe and refill that. So when you stick it in there, use the joystick to draw it out. Here, let me see that. There we go. Okay. Now grab that forceps and then grab a piece of skin out of there. I wonder if your IPD. Here, let me see if I can grab them. Okay. Here, you try. Okay, here, set it right there. Okay, cool. You're supposed to set it dermal side down. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna wet the skin sample with this syringe.
So what would happen if you lose things wrong?
You use the joystick to. So we didn't build in. That's a good question. We didn't build in fail states, but we have the system set up to allow people to do some things wrong. The client didn't want it to be that way. They wanted them to like always do the right thing. And then, but what we did do for this too was it's pushing out CSV data to a spreadsheet for things that they're doing, you know, what they're picking up and that sort of thing. And there's a portion of this that's an assessment where, you know, they're reminded of the steps that they did and how many things are they supposed to do, you know, how deep should the dermatome be set, or like what's the volume of fluids, that kind of thing.
But you don't do the real-time correction for the actions. Like if
Not-
I've done something wrong, it should be like, what, wait.
Right. Yeah. There's a couple of places where it will do that in another section in here, where it's like an assessment section, where you can do something wrong and it gives you a warning, basically. So there's like this stage is to show people all the steps, and then there's an assessment after we finish this where you can go back in and you're redo certain steps to see if you understood what you were supposed to do. And then when there's a fail state, it sends a CSV line to a spreadsheet, and then those are pushed into an LMS system so that they can like review, you know, how people did. Basically. Does that make sense? Okay.
Nick, we need you to look at those guys too. Let's see what they're doing.
Oh, it looks like
I got a feeling they're
looks like you're doing okay.
I got a feeling they're not real good.
Okay.
I think they're ready.
All right.
You can keep talking to Dimitri, but just look at them while you're doing the show.
Okay, yeah, pick that up. Okay, empty it into here.
Well, that's what I would.
So the user gets more of these tooltips than I'm seeing at the moment. Like for each step, there's an explicit tool tip that tells them what to do next. So like here, you're supposed to grab the label. The next one is to place it onto the syringe. And
So
now,
they're seeing these little dialogues come up like you are,
but there's more of them.
gotcha.
Like here, I'm going to take over for a second, okay? So,
What was that? What were the yellow arrows?
so that's to tell them, whoever's in the middle here, to turn around because they're working over here.
Okay.
Then they turn around with this thing, and they're supposed to set it over here. So I see this right now, but they don't see this one at the moment. We're still working on networking these so more people can see them. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here again. Somebody else go in there.
He is tall.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of steps that the client didn't want us to do interactivity for. That's one of them, where you staple the Telfa-Clear dressing on. And because the doctors they don't need to learn how to do that part. So one thing we did here was to, like, if you look at this, look at this closer, you can see there's a little spray head on it. Okay, you want to like spray it onto the wound. There you go. And you'll get a chance to do it over. So if you select this one, you can retry the spraying part. And what you'll see is there's like a little pattern that we're putting on there to show you like how wide the spray pattern is, depending on how close or far away you are. And then the optimal distance is when the numbers are white. So what I didn't do here was a good job of actually telling them how to do these steps. So this
which is for the real life is the whole point is somebody's training.
Yeah, you're a trainer and you're in there with a person, you're telling them do these steps, this is the next thing, and then the tool tips are there to help that process.
So what is
Yeah, you can spray some skin cells in. Okay, now take a look at this. Yeah, it's like a. Yeah, it's like just like a spray bottle, and you actuate it just like you would a syringe. So the plunger still works. Like first, hit the retry button right here. Okay, there we go. And now when you aim this like you're gonna spray it, hold it 90 degrees. There you go. Then you get something that shows you what the spray pattern is gonna be like. Yeah, so get it a little bit closer. There we go. Yeah, and so we're trying to pretty much, so what we've done is we've taken a little bit of skin from here, a little patch like this much, and then we have enough to treat all 3 of these burns from that little patch that we took off here earlier.
Is that realistic?
That's realistic.
So for that little patch, does that leave any long-lasting wound, or how soon does that heal?
Yeah, it doesn't because it's so thin. It's 6 thousandths of an inch thick.
Oh wow.
And a typical skin graft will be double that, like 15 to 20 thousandths thick. And that definitely, you get into bleeding tissue when you do that. This will probably not bleed. Yeah, this will probably not bleed. And really what you're going for is the epithelial cells that are on the very outside part.
And then you get through that layer.
Yeah, the derma.
Once this procedure is done, what's the healing time for the burn?
Oh yeah, okay. So it usually takes about 2 weeks for there to be some changes to the wound where it's in a healing process that actually looks different from what it used to be. And they have stages on their website where it shows 2 weeks and then a month and then 3 months. And it's a pretty dramatic, distant difference between the healing rates. It's pretty nice. So when you're done, you can, when you're done spraying this, you can finish, you can complete the training.
Is there a way you're able to actually fail this operation? Like if you knock over the table or stab the patient or something?
So that's what Demi was also asking. There are ways to fail at this. For this portion of it, it's just meant to be a training to help people understand what they're supposed to do. But the fail states would be things like drawing the wrong fluid volumes. Like here, I'll show you something. An example.
Like are you able to knock stuff on the floor or
Not yet. Not yet. That we're working on physics right now.
It happens though. They drop something.
It does happen. Yeah. So like one thing that will one place where you have to be careful is how much you shake the solution for the enzyme. You want to gently mix it because if you shake it, it puts a bunch of bubbles in there, and then you have trouble getting it into the well. So here, I'll get to that real quick.
You look like you're able to speed run this. What's the fastest?
Yeah, I think, let's see, I did it in 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's also sort of interesting to do it from like the lounge. Like you can go back out to the lounge and then look in on people while they're working.
Oh.
So one of the things that we thought was fun was to try to do the surgery from down like this. So that was, and then you get these tiny syringes. So This would be a fail state. Oh, there, I got it. It's definitely a lot harder to do when things are super tight.
Can they see it now?
Yeah. Yeah, here. Okay, hold on.
You just said, what's up with the general?
Sorry. Here, all right, here, I'll go back down.
Training the physics, bunch of surgeons.
So it's a job simulator, right? But multiplayer.
Right, yeah.
Not funny enough.
It's not funny. No, that's true. And it's probably not all that fun, for people, but, okay. So this is the one I was gonna show you. So once I put the fluid in here, and now I'm mixing it, if I shake it, then it tells me that I'm doing it wrong. And so I need to do it slower like this animation is showing.
Make your NPC to give like wrong suggestions, so you shouldn't listen to them.
That's a good idea. So another thing would be like, I put it into here instead of into here, Or I don't mix it right, when I'm in the process of doing it. So it would be like after you've had training, there's another section in here where you go through steps to assess. Like here I can, oh shoot, my headset's about to go dead.
We're kind of running out of time too.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sure I lost a few people there. That was like.
It was super interesting. Yeah, it's just cool to see it not games, like actual important uses.
Yeah, except it didn't run, dude.
Took a while, but it happens.
Like I have never experienced that before.
Networking's the worst.
We saw it working fine. We all know what bugs are like.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for coming, and see you next month. Or tell me who should present next month, because I got nobody. Sure, yeah. Bye. Oh, and yeah, we're going to go to JJ's Clubhouse for some food and some beer. Who's interested in going there? It's about 5, 6, 7 minutes north on 394.